What if you could face failure and rejection and still move forward stronger? Not just pretend you're okay, but actually become stronger, inside, in your soul. Imagine living in a way where no setback defines you, no opinion stops you, and no fear keeps you stuck in the same place you've been for too long. The kind of life where even when the world says you failed, your spirit whispers back, "I'm still rising." But let's be honest, that's not how most people live. You might feel tired right now. Maybe you've tried and failed more times than you care to admit. Maybe you've been praying, but the answers feel silent. Maybe you're carrying a guilt you can't explain, or a weight you can't seem to put down. And deep down you wonder, will I ever really break free from this cycle? You're not alone. There's a quiet suffering in so many hearts today. People who appear strong on the outside, but inside, they're breaking. Not because they're weak, but because they never were taught how to think like the unbreakable. Tracy once said, "The true measure of success is how high you bounce when you hit the bottom." But most people don't bounce. They break. They give up. They hide behind distractions. Or worse, they settle for a version of life that's smaller than what God intended. Let's get this clear from the beginning. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, like a muscle, like faith, like trust. You build it not by avoiding pain, but by learning how to walk through it with purpose. There's a reason why some people go through massive rejection and come out wiser. And others, with the same pain, become bitter, closed off, or lost. The difference? Mindset. Not the shallow kind of mindset filled with fake positivity, but a spiritual, tested, sacred mindset, forged through pain and lit by divine hope. You see, pain is not the enemy. Avoiding pain is. Because when we avoid pain, we also avoid the opportunity it carries. Every failure is pregnant with a lesson. Every rejection hides a redirection. Every breakdown contains the seed of a breakthrough. But only if you've trained your mind to see it. Because here's the hard truth most won't tell you. You will fall. You will be disappointed. You will face delays, betrayal, and moments that make you want to quit. But that's not the end of your story unless you make it the end. So what if, just what if, the very thing that's hurting you right now is the thing God is using to strengthen you? What if your worst fall is secretly your invitation to rise higher than you ever have? Listen carefully. You're not failing. You're being prepared. Prepared to think differently. Prepared to stop tying your identity to your past. Prepared to step into a mindset that doesn't just react, it reframes. Because once you realize this, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How is this shaping who I'm becoming?" That question changes everything. So here's your first act of defiance against defeat. Go to the comments right now and write, "I refuse to stay down. I train my mind to rise." Not tomorrow, not when life feels easy, now. And if something in your heart is stirring, if this message feels like something you've needed for a long time, subscribe right now. Not for motivation, but for mental and spiritual transformation. Because when you master the mindset of resilience, nothing outside you can defeat the power growing inside you. In the next part of this video, you're going to discover a powerful mindset shift, a new way of thinking that will help you turn pain into power. And I'll share a real story of someone who was rejected, overlooked, and forgotten, but who used that very moment to change their life forever. Because when you learn how to rise every time you fall, you stop surviving and you start living. Resilience starts in the way you frame reality. Here's the hard truth. It's not what happens to you that breaks you. It's what you tell yourself about what happens to you. Two people can go through the same betrayal, the same rejection, the same loss, and walk away with completely different stories. One becomes bitter, the other becomes better. One says, "This ruined me." The other says, "This revealed me." Why? Because the most powerful force in your life is the meaning you attach to your experience. As Tracy wisely said, it's not the events of your life that determine your destiny, it's your response to those events. Pause and let that truth settle in. It's your response, your interpretation, your framing. Resilient people don't avoid problems, they reframe them. They don't ask, "Why me?" They ask, "What is this preparing me for?" That one shift, that single quiet change in inner dialogue can turn a lifetime of suffering into a sacred path of growth. It turns victims into visionaries. Let's break this down with clarity. Here's the key difference. A fragile mindset sees failure as something personal. If a business fails, they say, "I am a failure." If a relationship ends, they believe, "I'm not lovable." If life gets hard, they interpret it as punishment. But here's the truth. Life will never be free from pain, and waiting for it to go away only makes it louder. Now contrast that with a resilient mindset. The resilient see failure as feedback. Rejection becomes redirection. Discomfort becomes the gym where strength is forged. They don't wait for clarity to move. They move, and clarity begins to emerge. They don't see hard times as punishment, but as preparation for a calling not yet visible. Let me give you a practical metaphor. Imagine pain as fire. In the hands of the untrained, fire burns and destroys. But in the hands of a craftsman, that same fire refines metal, purifies gold, and cooks food that gives life. The fire didn't change, the relationship to the fire did. That's reframing. It doesn't remove the heat, it repurposes it. Reframing doesn't erase pain, it redirects it toward purpose. You begin to see patterns in what once felt like chaos. You begin to trust that what you're going through might be shaping something eternal in you. The Bible gives us one of the most powerful reframing instructions ever written. Philippians 4:8, "Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, think on these things." In other words, direct your mental energy to what uplifts your spirit. Because what you dwell on, you magnify. If you constantly focus on the betrayal, you relive it. If you obsess over fear, it grows. But if you choose to reflect on the deeper truth beneath the pain, the lesson, the awakening, the spiritual preparation, then that same pain becomes a portal, a door to a new way of seeing and being. Here's a tool to try starting today. The 3F filter: frame, focus, fuel. 1. Frame it.
Ask what just happened. Not what you feel, but what actually happened, stripped of emotion. 2. Focus it. Ask, what does this mean? Choose a meaning that empowers, not disempowers. 3. Fuel it. Ask, how can I use this? Use the pain, don't waste it. For example, your friend doesn't return your call. Frame, they didn't respond. Focus, maybe they're overwhelmed, not ignoring me. Fuel, let me check in without attachment and then refocus on what I can control today. It sounds simple, but practiced daily, this becomes one of the strongest resilience tools you'll ever use. Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches that your brain becomes a reflection of your most repeated thoughts. Every time you reframe pain with faith, you're rewiring your nervous system. You're breaking the loop of fear and building a new neural path of power. So over time, instead of spiraling into self-pity or despair, you begin to instinctively ask, what is God growing in me through this? That shift is the beginning of emotional freedom. Because when you train your brain to see with purpose, life doesn't get easier, you get stronger. Let's come back to that verse one more time. Whatever is true, think on these things. Truth doesn't always feel good. Sometimes truth confronts us. It tells us you're clinging to something that's already over, or you're trying to control what only God can heal. But when we choose truth over fear, even if it hurts, we step into alignment. And in that alignment, resilience is born. Not from pretending, not from performing, but from perceiving pain through a higher lens. So here's your reflection for today. What are you telling yourself about your current situation? Is it helping you heal or keeping you stuck? Could this setback, this moment that feels like the end, be the beginning of something sacred? Could your most painful experience be the chapter that teaches you how to reframe everything? You're not stuck. You're being reshaped. And the way you frame your reality will either build your prison or unlock your freedom.
Case story. Javier, the engineer who was told, "You're not enough." Sometimes the most powerful lessons in resilience come not from theories, but from lives. This is the story of Javier, a quiet, thoughtful mechanical engineer from Guadalajara, Mexico. He had dreams, clear, focused dreams. He wasn't chasing fame, he wasn't after status. He simply wanted to use his skills to contribute meaningfully to a tech company that would value his mind. And he was qualified. He had the experience, the education, the character. But the doors stayed closed. 3 interviews, 3 rejections. Each time, the answer felt colder. You're not a good fit. On the 3rd one, it got personal. You're too quiet. You won't thrive in our fast-paced culture. Those words hit him like a blow to the chest. It wasn't just professional. It felt like a verdict on his identity. For a week, he stopped applying. He questioned everything. Maybe I'm not built for this. Maybe who I am isn't enough. And this is where many stories end. At the pause between pain and purpose, where doubt gets louder than desire. But for Javier, something shifted. One evening, scrolling through a video online, he heard a single quote from Tracy. "Difficulties come not to obstruct, but to instruct." He played it again and again,
until that line began to echo inside him like a personal message. Not to obstruct, but to instruct. That was the moment everything began to change. Javier realized the no wasn't the enemy. It was his interpretation of the no that was sabotaging him. What if this pain wasn't a wall, but a mirror? What if it wasn't saying, "You're unworthy," but rather, "There's something to learn here"? So instead of giving up, he got curious. What was the rejection trying to teach him? He didn't become someone else. He didn't fake extroversion or change his nature. He worked on communication, not to impress others, but to express himself more clearly. That's when the real transformation began. He made a decision. If his presence in interviews was the barrier, then that's what he would work on, strategically and with grace. He didn't go into hustle mode. He went into alignment. Step by step, Javier took ownership of the growth process. 1. He hired a communication coach, not to become louder, but to become clearer, to learn how to speak with authority even through a calm presence. 2. He practiced mock interviews with friends. Repetition replaced anxiety with familiarity. Each attempt was less about performing and more about connecting. 3. He recorded himself speaking, not for social media, but for self-reflection, to watch himself, understand his patterns, and grow through intentional feedback. And every morning, he repeated aloud, "I am resourceful. I grow stronger through rejection." It wasn't an affirmation. It was a declaration, a conscious reprogramming of the mind anchored in faith that rejection is not the end, but a teacher. 6 weeks later, Javier received an email from a fast-growing startup. He wasn't sure what to expect, but something inside felt different this time. During the interview, he didn't try to impress. He simply showed up as himself, prepared, present, and grounded. He shared ideas calmly. He didn't rush to fill silence. He listened and responded with thoughtful intention. 2 days later, the offer arrived. They didn't just want to hire him. They wanted to give him leadership responsibilities from the start. Why? Because, and this is key, his calm, focused presence was exactly what their fast-moving culture needed to stay balanced. The very trait he was told would disqualify him became the trait that positioned him. Today, Javier leads a product team. He doesn't dominate meetings. He doesn't push with force. But when he speaks, people listen. And whenever a junior engineer faces rejection, whenever someone on his team feels like they've failed, he looks them in the eye and says, "Don't fight the no. Learn from it, build with it." Because he knows resilience is not about never falling. It's about learning how to fall forward. And more importantly, it's not about changing who you are. It's about changing the lens through which you see who you are. Javier's journey teaches something profound. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy. And you don't have to fear rejection when you understand that each no holds a sacred message. Rejection, if interpreted correctly, is divine redirection. It's heaven's way of closing a door not meant for you, so that your soul can walk through the one that is. What if you could see your latest failure like that? What if the disappointment you're carrying right now isn't a sign you're not enough, but a call to look deeper, adjust, and rise? Because Javier didn't become more than he was. He became more aware of who he already was, and he refined that awareness into action. So now the question returns to you. What feedback have you been resisting because it felt like rejection? What would happen if instead of retreating, you reframed it? Not as an obstacle, but as instruction. Could your current setback be preparing you for something you can't yet see? Could you, like Javier, choose to meet the no with curiosity instead of collapse? Because remember, the most important conversation you'll ever have is not with the world. It's the one you have with yourself, right after life tells you you're not enough. That's the moment where resilience is born. And if you choose to listen deeper, to reframe the pain, to rise again, you'll find, as Javier did, you were never unqualified. You were being prepared.
Tools to build mental resilience daily. Resilience isn't a trait. It's not something you either have or you don't. It's a mental habit built through repetition, reflection, and reframing. Like physical muscles, your mental strength only grows when you consistently put it under intentional stress and allow it to recover with wisdom. Brian Tracy said it clearly. You develop resilience the same way you develop strength, by using it daily, even when it hurts. And this is the part most people miss. They wait for pain to disappear before they take action. They wait for clarity before they move. They wait for permission to believe in themselves. But resilience is not about waiting. It's about training. Every day in small, sacred steps. So today, you'll receive 3 practical tools, proven, simple, and powerful, to rewire your mind for resilience. These aren't motivational tricks, they're mental rituals. And if you practice them consistently, they'll change the way you relate to every setback, every challenge, every no. Let's begin. 1. Reframe everything that triggers you. The first and most important skill is reframing. This is the foundation of mental resilience. Reframing is the ability to change the meaning you give to any experience, especially painful ones. Because here's the truth. It's not the event that breaks you. It's the interpretation you attach to it. So here's the technique. Flip the meaning. Every time something frustrates you, disappoints you, or triggers fear, pause and flip the meaning toward growth. Let's make it real with examples. Rejection? This is redirection to something better. A mistake? Now I know what doesn't work. I'm getting smarter.
Criticism? That's data, not a definition of me. The mind loves patterns, and the more you practice flipping meaning toward growth, the faster your brain builds those neural shortcuts. Until one day, something goes wrong, and your first thought isn't collapse, it's curiosity. The faster you reframe, the less time you spend in useless pain. It's not about pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about giving your pain a productive path. Because when pain has no path, it becomes poison. But when pain has a purpose, it becomes power. 2. Keep a bounce-back journal. Reflection is the secret weapon of resilient minds. And one of the most transformative tools is what we call a bounce-back journal. Once a week, choose a quiet space, no distractions, just you, your thoughts, and your truth. And write down the following. One situation that challenged you, how you reacted emotionally and mentally, what you learned about yourself through it, what you'll do differently next time. This practice isn't about journaling for the sake of it. It's about developing self-awareness. Because what you don't observe, you repeat. But what you document, you begin to transform. Let's walk through an example. You got into an argument at work. You felt dismissed. Situation: argument with coworker, felt unappreciated. Reaction: shut down emotionally, took it personally. Lesson: I often equate disagreement with rejection. New response: next time, pause and ask, what part of this is mine to own? Do you see the power? You're no longer stuck in the same loops. You're learning from your own life. And over time, you'll begin to see that even the most frustrating moments are filled with instruction. What gets documented gets transformed. Don't just live your life, study it. Because hidden in your weekly pain is weekly wisdom. 3. Daily affirmations of power and identity. Your identity is the soil from which every decision grows. If you see yourself as fragile, you will avoid challenges. If you see yourself as resilient, you will rise through them. That's why affirmations matter. But not just any affirmations, ones that speak directly to your ability to bounce back and reframe. Here are a few to start with. Speak them aloud, with emotion and certainty, especially when you don't feel strong. I adapt quickly. I learn fast. I bounce back stronger. No one event defines me. My response creates my future. Hard days build stronger minds. These are not magic spells. They are reprogramming tools. Because every time you say them, you're carving new beliefs into your subconscious. And when your beliefs shift, your behavior follows. Speak these over your morning. Speak them when you feel weak. Speak them until your mind starts believing before your emotions do. Because consistency creates identity. And now we bring this home, not just mentally, but spiritually. Proverbs 24:16 says, "For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again." This isn't just a verse, it's a map. It doesn't say the righteous avoid falling. It says they rise again and again. That's the real victory. Not perfection, not the absence of pain, but the refusal to stay down. That kind of mindset is built through practice, through repetition, through choice. Every morning you wake up and try again, you are winning. Every time you fall, reflect and stand back up with even 1% more wisdom, you are becoming unshakable. Closing reflection, daily integration. So now the question is not, will life get easier? The question is, am I training my mind to rise no matter what comes? Because that's resilience. It's not in the big moments, it's in the daily decisions, to reframe what hurts, to document what teaches, to declare what's true, even when feelings say otherwise. These tools won't just help you survive hard seasons. They will shape you into the kind of person who transforms through them. The kind of person who walks through fire and comes out not bitter, but brighter. Because every fall is an invitation, and every rise is a quiet miracle in motion.
Fall, learn, rise, repeat. The truth is simple, but powerful. Resilience isn't about never falling. It's about refusing to stay down. That one decision to stand back up again and again is what separates a life of regret from a life of revelation. Brian Tracy puts it this way: every failure carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Notice he didn't say some failures. He said every failure, which means even the moments you'd rather erase, even the mistakes you still replay in your mind, even the losses that still sting in your soul, all of them carry a seed. But a seed only grows when planted in faith and watered with persistence. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need to feel powerful. You just need to stay in the process. Because it's not about pretending you're strong. It's about continuing even when you don't feel strong. And there's a deeper layer to this truth, one rooted in spiritual wisdom. Romans 5:3-4 reminds us, suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. Do you see the divine order? Suffering isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of transformation. It produces perseverance. Perseverance shapes character, and character becomes the soil where real hope grows. Not fragile, temporary hope, but hope that has been tested. Because hope that hasn't been tested is easily lost. But hope that has walked through pain and still chooses to believe, that hope can change the world. Pain as a tool, the divine purpose. The pain you've experienced wasn't random. It wasn't wasted. And it certainly wasn't meant to define you. It came to refine you, to reveal who you really are beneath the fear, the doubt, and the failure. Pain doesn't come to destroy. It comes to chisel away everything that isn't truly you. And what remains? Resilience, wisdom, grace, faith that has been made real. So let this be your reminder. Every no can teach you a new path. Every error can expose a stronger version of yourself. And every fall is an opportunity to rise with more clarity, more courage, and more conviction. The core truth, your new formula. There is a simple formula for living a resilient life. One that works not just on good days, but especially on the hard ones. Fall, learn, rise, repeat. That's it. You fall, you get honest,
You get up, you keep going. No drama, no self-punishment, no shame. Just the next right step, taken with faith. And if you keep walking this way, even slowly, you will build something few ever do. A soul that knows how to rise. So, if this message spoke to something deep inside you, if you're tired of getting stuck in the same loops of self-doubt, and you're ready to train your mind to grow through anything, then write it below in the comments. I rise, I learn, I grow, I never stay down. Not because life gets easier, but because you get wiser. Subscribe to this channel if you're ready to rewire your mind for resilience and walk through your storms with strength, clarity, and grace. And share this video with someone who feels like giving up today. Someone who needs to hear, you're not weak, you're being reshaped. Because they're not alone, and neither are you. Embrace the identity. You are more resilient than you think. You are more prepared than you realize. And you are already being shaped into the person who can rise again and again. Because within you is the mind of a victor, the soul of a fighter, the heart of someone who was never meant to stay down. Fall, learn, rise, repeat. This is how you become unstoppable.